Since the beginning of this century, society has undergone some tremendous changes. Of course, the biggest change as far as we have been concerned is the introduction of scouting all those years ago. Now, there's very little comparison in some respects to scouting that we practice today and that which BP introduced to us back in 1907 at Brownsea Island. Nowadays we have activities that we only dreamt of then, but nevertheless many of our activities can be seen, would have been seen at that same camp in Brownsea Island. The wonderful thing about scouting is that whilst our activities might be changing in some respects, the values and the principles that BP gave to us all those years ago still remain at the very heart of scouting and is the essence of all that we are doing in bringing better scouting to more young people. One of the things that BP did for us was to introduce World Jamborees. He had the vision all those years ago to realise that young people from all around the world would gain immeasurably by simply coming together, living together, learning from each other, and then bringing those lessons back into their own countries, into their own communities, and helping that knowledge and information to change the lives of others. The very first World Jamboree was held in London in 1920, and at that World Jamboree, BP was declared Chief Scout of the world. The first Chief Scout of the world, the only Chief Scout of the world. Another major milestone came with the Arrow Park World Jamboree in Birkenhead in 1929. A World Jamboree that was a huge success and marked by the fact that BP sent out golden arrows to all corners of the world. Golden arrows that bore the message of peace, goodwill and scouting. The spirit of that message remains as strong today as it was then. I am glad to say that message is still being taken to thousands of young people, to millions of young people all around the world. In looking at those major milestones and in looking at modern scouting today, we will see that not only are we proud of what we have done in the past, not only are we interested in the history of our movement, but we can use that experience as a foundation for modern youth, foundation for today's young people, and a launching pad for scouting for tomorrow.
Scouting today, with over 600,000 boys and girls in the United Kingdom, is a far cry from the image of boys in short trousers and wide-brimmed hats whose sole purpose in life seemed to be tying knots and helping old ladies across the road. Community service remains a cornerstone of Scout training, but as in other aspects of modern Scouting, it's moved with the times. Today's Scouts, as demonstrated here, take part in a wide range of adventurous and challenging activities. There are opportunities for parachuting, caving, mountaineering, sailing and canoeing, as well as their long-standing camping adventures. Today, the Scout movement is an exciting, inspiring international organisation of over 25 million boys and girls in more than 200 countries, who together constitute the most celebrated youth movement in world history. The aim of the Scout Association is to promote the development of young people in achieving their full physical, social and spiritual potentials as individuals as responsible citizens and as members of the local, national and international communities. The method of achieving this aim lies in providing an enjoyable and attractive scheme of progressive training based on the Scout promise and law and guided by adult leadership. This is the Scout movement today, a movement which has never stopped growing since it was founded in 1907, and since that date to the turn of the millennium there have been over 250 million Scouts. But let's pause for a moment and turn back the yellowing pages of time to trace the origin and the development of this remarkable organisation. The successful defence of Mafeking during the 217-day siege in 1898 made Robert Baden-Powell a hero at home. He became a Major General at the age of 43. In Mafeking, he formed boys into groups to carry out responsible jobs and was impressed by their resourcefulness. But as a hero, his face was to be found everywhere. During the siege, he wrote his book, Aids to Scouting. On returning to Britain, he found his book was being used by youth leaders all over the country, and so he decided to rewrite the book for boys. To test his ideas in practice, BP decided to try an experimental scout camp for 20 boys at Brownsley Island in Dorset. This was in August 1907. He was helped by friends and the Boys' Brigade, who brought along some local boys. Others at the camp included sons of his friends. With the success of the camp, he toured the country propagating his ideas. On the 24th of January 1908, he visited the YMCA Birkenhead, today the site of Primark and Virgin. Here he publicly launched the idea to much enthusiasm. In 1910, BP unveiled a plaque in the YMCA Birkenhead to commemorate the occasion. Local Scouts still have a letter from him written in 1908 confirming the announcement. It's difficult to establish which was the first troop, as many claim this honour from Glasgow to Sunderland and from Wolverhampton to Plymouth. The first troop to be inspected by BP was in Sunderland on the 22nd of February. This camp at Greasby Wirral in 1908, with the 1st Birkenhead YMCA troop, is claimed to be a first, so much so that an American visited the site in the 1960s wanting to erect a shrine on it. The 1st Birkenhead YMCA, now defunct, attended many early camps and claimed to have been the only troop to have paraded before King Edward VII. King Edward, on granting BP a Knight Commander of the Royal Victorian Order, suggested he would be more valuable to the country within the Scout movement. So quickly did the movement grow, a rally at Crystal Palace in 1909 attracted 11,000 Scouts. It soon grew throughout the rest of the world. George V granted the movement a royal charter in 1912 and became its patron. Rallies took place all over the country, such as this one in front of St George's Hall, Liverpool in 1919. In 1916, a Wolf Cub section was formed, and in 1918, the Rover Scouts for over 18s came into being. At the first World Jamboree, an indoor event at Olympia, London in 1920, BP was spontaneously declared Chief Scout of the World. The first outdoor jamboree in Copenhagen, Denmark, set the pattern for the future. What was Scout life like in those early days? This recruitment film of 1921 gives us an insight.
Tim is a bit of a scallywag. He picks a fight with Jack the Scout. But as luck will have it, it's Jack that gets the punishment. Tim feels guilty, but soon is all forgiven and they are friends. Jack thinks Tim will make a good scout and shows him BP's Scouting for Boys. He invites him to the next meeting of the 1st Houndsditch Green Troop. Woodpecker Patrol learn the theory of tracking. Owl Patrol learn how to grind an axe. The Scoutmaster introduces Tim to the Scout law. And then time for recreational games. An instructional game follows, Grandma's Footsteps, or lessons in silent stepping. At the end of the meeting, Tim is interviewed by the Court of Honour, the Executive Council of the group. He hands in his parents' permission. After discussion, Tim is voted as a member and welcomed to the troop. After training, tenderfoot tests follow. It is necessary to learn tracking, the patrol call, signs and salutes. Everyone learns the composition of the Union Jack and the right and wrong way to fly it. There are many knots to learn and how to use them. Now for instruction in the Scout law. A Scout's honour is to be trusted. A Scout is loyal to the King, his country, his officers, his parents, his employers, and those under him. Tim rescues a fellow Scout. A Scout's duty is to be useful and to help others, and duty starts at home. A scout is a friend to all and a brother to every other scout, no matter to what social class the other belongs. A scout is courteous. A scout is a friend to animals. A scout obeys orders of his parents, his patrol leader or scoutmaster without question. A scout smiles and whistles under all difficulties. A scout is thrifty. 2 and 6pence goes a long way. A scout is clean in thought, word and deed. Tim resents the smuttiness of a schoolmate. All goes well, and it is time for investiture. Tim makes the promise and becomes a scout.
I promise on my honor to do my best, to do my duty to God and to the King, to help other people at all times, and to obey the Scout law.
I joined the movement in January 1917, and I was a cub for 18 months and then went into the Scouts just before I was 11. I've been thoroughly involved in the movement ever since then, both as a cub, scout, assistant scoutmaster, district scoutmaster, assistant district commissioner, and eventually commissioner. Since the early days, I've kept a diary of my scouting activities and have a record of the Chief Scout's visit in 1927, when he announced that there would be a World Jamboree in the neighbourhood shortly. That led up to the World Jamboree at Arrow Park in 1929.
The venue for the Coming of Age World Jamboree came at the suggestion of the Birkenhead Scouts Association to the Town Council. Arrow Park had recently been acquired by the town for the public's use. The idea was taken up and the council offered it to the Scout Association free of charge. After inspection, it was enthusiastically accepted. There were 450 acres of parkland and a hall in which to hold the 5th International Conference. A local committee was set up under the chairmanship of Sir Arnold Rushton, President of the Liverpool Scouts Association, and he involved the Lord Mayor of Liverpool, together with the mayors of surrounding towns, including Birkenhead, Wallasey, Chester, Bootle, Southport, Manchester, and many others. Local subcommittees looked after detailed aspects such as catering, health, transport, and excursions. Heads of local business undertakings became involved, and the whole of Merseyside enthusiastically took on the task. Scout headquarters in London had committees looking after national and international interests. Publicity was important. Scouts would be coming from all parts of the country, the Empire, and the rest of the world. The Danes chartered a ship for 1,500, the French arrived at Tilbury and took a fleet of special trains to Birkenhead for 2,000 of them, and there were special scout liners from the USA. The Germans hiked from Hull. The quest of the Golden Arrow was the theme, a symbol of peace. On the 31st of July 1929, the Duke of Connaught opened the Coming of Age Jamboree. It was to be the largest ever, with 50,000 scouts from 51 nations. 320,000 members of the public attended the 15-day event.
I managed to get free of my duties to join the crowd for the March Past of the Nations, this really was indescribable. And I think the thousands of people who were present felt the same. It was a triumph of scouting to get the youth of the world together like that.
The pageant of nations paraded before the Duke, led by 1,500 scouts from America. They were followed by the nations of the world. Then came the British Commonwealth of Nations.
Scouts, why are you so beastly proud of yourselves? You are, you know, however much you may grin and say that you are not. It's not the uniform, and it's not the badges. Those are all swank, and a scout is not swanky, though he may be proud. I think you are proud because you know this, that although you are only a boy, you can, through your training as a scout, do a man's work and show a man's pluck when the call comes. You proved this in the Great War. 28,000 of you took up the duties of coast watching, and others of you did other duties in your thousands, thereby releasing a large number of men to go to the front. 100,000 of you who were old enough, or nearly old enough, joined up and went on service. 10,000 never came back, but gave their lives for the country. Jack Cornwall, B.C., was a Boy Scout, and so were 11 others who won the Victoria Cross. Those are the things that make you proud of being in our great brotherhood of Scouts. Now, those of you who are tenderfoots or second class must remember this and carry out your motto, be prepared. That is, to train yourselves to be strong, active, and clever, because then, if at any time you are called upon, you know you will be able to lend a hand and do man's work for other people and for your country. I don't mean that you should train especially to be soldiers or sailors, but to be what is better still, good, useful, cheerful citizens. That is what you should aim for. Practice the Scout law in your everyday life. Don't merely know the law by heart. Do it, and you will be happier boys and better men. Think daily on your promise as a scout, to do your duty to God and the King, to obey the Scout law, and to help other people at all times. Good luck to you and good camping.
The site was a massive 1 mile long by half a mile wide, split into sub-camps. It was a Dutch scoutmaster that christened it the Mudbury on account of the excessive amount of rain causing mud everywhere. All were cheerful as they slithered along. In spite of the mud, 50,000 scouts soon settled down to 2 weeks of camp life. BP had an advantage. He was able to visit the camps on horseback. For some of the British contingent, there was an overspill camp at nearby Overchurch. The Jamboree Market was like some foreign boulevard. In addition to the mud, there were all sorts of facilities for buying snacks, gifts, film, Boots the chemist, even the bank manager was a scout. Morning after morning, the Daily Arrow was published. 38,000 copies daily were sold on and off the camp, with over 3,000 going to other parts of the world. Editor Hayden Dimmock planned the newspaper, although after issue 5 he was rushed to hospital with pneumonia. His team carried on with the help of the Birkenhead Advertiser newspaper printers and sponsors. There was news of yesterday's events and plans for the new day. Advertisers invited visitors to the Argyle Theatre to hear Ambrose and the Savoy Orpheums, and famous Liverpool stores invited visitors to their restaurants with the offer of a camera for 5 shillings.
The American army came and put up the American camp, and the kitchens moved in and the cooks moved in, and then the boys moved in to find everything already prepared for them. But the rest of us did the best we could with our rations and the mud.
Saturday the 3rd of August was the Sea Scouts event at West Kirby on the lake on the River Dee. BP read out a message from Prince George, Chief of Sea Scouts, regrettably absent through illness. The Hungarians performed first on new-style water skis. The local Sea Scouts made valiant efforts to perform the incredible adventures of Captain Curdle in gale-force winds and rain. After crossing the River Mersey by ferry on the last Sunday, the Scouts marched through Liverpool and received a warm welcome from vast crowds all the way to the partly built cathedral, which wouldn't be completed until 1978. The visit of the Prince of Wales was a highlight. Alderman Solly, Mayor of Birkenhead, greeted him at the borough boundary after the Prince was met at Houghton Aerodrome by the Lord Lieutenant of Cheshire. Having spent the night in a tent, the Prince was delighted to wake up to the sunniest day of the Jamboree. After touring the camps, this is the American camp, he took the stand with BP to salute the Parade of Nations. Then the great surge forward as 35,000 British scouts with staves uplifted descended on the royal visitor until they formed a solid, throbbing, cheering group. The Prince read a message of welcome to all nations from the King. The message also conferred a peerage on the Chief Scout, who took the title Lord Baden-Powell of Gilwell, after the name of the Scouts International Training Centre. For BP, now in his early 70s, it was probably the pinnacle of his career. It was the duty of Christian Home, president of Denmark's Scouts, to present a Rolls-Royce and caravan on behalf of 1.25 million Scouts of the world, made possible as a result of a penny collection. On the final parade, BP symbolically buried the hatchet of war in the midst of a barrel of golden arrows. From all corners of the earth, you have journeyed to this great gathering of world fellowship and brotherhood. Today, I send you out from Arrow to all the world, bearing my symbol of peace and fellowship, each one of you my ambassador, bearing my message of love and fellowship on the wings of sacrifice and service to the ends of the earth. From now on, the Scout symbol of peace is the golden arrow. Carry it fast and far, so that all men may know the brotherhood of man. To all corners of the compass, the Chief Scout sent 4 golden arrows of peace and friendship. Swiftly, they radiated from hand to hand until they had travelled throughout the nations of the world. As a gesture of gratitude to Birkenhead Corporation, the Imperial Scout Headquarters donated a statue of a Scout in commemoration of the Jamboree of 1929, inscribed with an extract of BP's farewell speech. At 3 o'clock on the afternoon of the 12th of September 1931, Lord Hampton, second in command of the movement, arrived with Councillor E.J. Hughes, Mayor of Birkenhead, and also present were Lieutenant Colonel G. Walton, HQ Commandant of the Rover Scouts, and Hubert Martin, Director of the British Scouts International Bureau. Alderman Solly, Mayor at the time of the Jamboree, was also there. Set 200 yards from the main gate at 5 ways, the statue remained there for over 40 years. It was then moved to the entrance of the new Arrow Park Hospital, built on the site of the old parade ground. At the age of 74, BP was considering his future, but he was to live another 10 years. At the time, he lived in a house called Pax Hill in Bentley.
I married Mabel in 1937. My wife wrote to the Chief Scout asking if he would mind us calling our house Pax Hill the same as his.
And he wrote back and said he hoped we'd be as happy in our Pax Hill as they were in theirs. I didn't tell Frank because I thought he'd throw me out. After having received the agreement to let us call the house Pax Hill, I thought it would be rather nice to have something from their Pax Hill for our Pax Hill, and I asked if they could send out a small bush or a small tree. And that is now an ash tree that they sent up. It is now in the garden. It is a wonderful tree.
BP's last Jamboree was to be the one in 1937 in Vogelensang, Holland.
I wish you a long and happy life and lots of good camping.
He died in his beloved Kenya in 1941. Towards the end of his life, he prepared a farewell message to Scouts for publication after his death.
Dear Scouts, if you have ever seen the play Peter Pan, you will remember how the pirate chief was always making his dying speech, because he was afraid that possibly when the time came for him to die, he might not have time to get it off his chest. It is much the same with me, and so, although I am not at this moment dying, I shall be doing so one of these days, and I want to send you a parting word of goodbye. Remember, it is the last you will ever hear from me, so think it over. I have had a most happy life, and I want each one of you to have a happy life too. I believe that God put us in this jolly world to be happy and to enjoy life. Happiness doesn't come from being rich, nor merely from being successful in your career, nor by self-indulgence. One step towards happiness is to make yourself healthy and strong while you are a boy, so that you can be useful and so can enjoy life when you are a man. Nature study will show how full of beautiful and wonderful things God has made the world for you to enjoy. Be contented with what you have got and make the best of it. Look on the bright side of things instead of the gloomy one. But the real way to get happiness is by giving out happiness to other people. Try and leave this world a little better than you found it. And when your turn comes to die, you can die happy in feeling that at any rate you have not wasted your time, but have done your best. Be prepared in this way to live happy and to die happy. Stick to your Scout promise always, even after you have ceased to be a boy. And God help you to do it. Your friend, Baden Powell of Gilwell.
He had been Chief Scout of the World for 20 years. No one else would ever hold this position. An aspect of scouting introduced by Ralph Reeder in London in 1932 is the gang show. It caught on. 2 Royal Command performances came later. Today, a gang show is probably performed somewhere in the world every day of the year. On screen is part of Chester's show in 1962.
Tracking in the meadow or a bird upon the wing, in the autumn or the winter or the summer or the spring, it's a most remarkable thing.
Ralph Reeder's songs have been translated into all languages, a unique achievement. The 9th World Jamboree celebrated 2 things: 50 years since Brownsea Island and 100 years since the birth of BP. Sutton Coldfield in the middle of England was host to 33,000 scouts from 90 countries. Overwhelming hospitality was given by the locals both before and after the event. Sutton Park, a beautiful natural park, was the setting. The site was divided into 5 sub-camps named after earlier jamborees: Copenhagen, Arrow Park, Godollow, Vogelandsang and Moissem. On Thursday, the 1st of August 1957, Chief Scout Lord Roallan asked His Royal Highness the Duke of Gloucester to open the event. He welcomed scouts from all over the world. After the opening ceremony, he toured the ranks of over 30,000 scouts. A welcome break for tea gave him the opportunity to meet and talk with representatives from all nations. He then took time to tour the camp, to meet the people and watch some of the displays. There was dancing and singing from many cultures. Here are New Zealand and the Caribbean.
I was also at Sutton Coldfield Jamboree, and there I was in charge of the distribution of food to at the Scouters camp. Our first duty in the morning was to take in 3,200 bottles of milk, plus quite a number for the Indaba, and we had a special marquee for bread and a separate marquee for selling bread, milk to any camps who wanted extra supplies for entertaining purposes.
At times there was a terrific heat wave, but on one occasion the worst torrential downpour for years reminded veterans of the mud at Arrow Park in 1929. As usual, all difficulties were overcome cheerfully. Germans really looked after themselves, with whole pigs being cooked on a spit. Can you imagine the smell and the taste? For most people, food was quite the normal variety, but the consumption of 5.5 million eggs was quite something. Time for Reveille in Holland, time to raise the flag in Vienna. Scouts of the USA were well represented and provided hospitality for many nations. Demonstrations of clever rope work brought enthusiastic response. In the arena, different nations performed each day. On this occasion, it's the Maoris from New Zealand. The Jubilee Journal was published daily and distributed throughout the camp by Sutton Coldfield Scouts. For the first time in the UK, commemorative stamps of various values were issued by the Post Office. Prime Minister Harold Macmillan was one VIP visitor. Greeted by Lord Rowallan, he was introduced to Ken Stevens, organising commissioner responsible for planning the event. Like Arrow Park, the highlight of the Jamboree was the royal visit, this time by Her Majesty the Queen and Prince Philip. Among those presented, Lady Baden-Powell. Camp Chief Sir Robert Lockhart had the honour of guiding the royal party. First of all, they went to the hospital provided by the Royal Air Force. After the parade, they visited the rest of the sub-camps. At the arena, the Queen took the salute at the march past of 84 nations. On parade were a maximum of 24 from each nation, the smallest contingent being Basutoland with just 2. Contingents included exiles from Iron Curtain countries and the very young country of Taiwan. For Sutton Coldfield, the whole event had been an outstanding success and a credit to the borough. 1967, Diamond Jubilee year. Idaho in the USA was host to the 12th Jamboree with the theme For Friendship. 1,300 UK Scouts were there, resplendent in their new image uniforms, the start of a new era in British Scouting. 12,000 Scouts from over 100 countries took part. The Americans laid on a true Wild West rodeo and a grand fireworks display at the finale celebrating 60 years since Brownsea Island. Scouts of today keep abreast of the times. It's the largest voluntary youth organisation in the world. The choice of activities available today could hardly have been dreamt of 90 years ago. Since 1991, the Scout movement has been open to both male and female members of all ages. Each group can choose to function as a single-sex or mixed group, and most districts have some mixed groups. In the Beavers, there are places for 6 to 8-year-olds and from 8 to 10 in the Cubs. Young people from the age of 10 to 16 can become Scouts, and once over 16, they can choose to enter the Venture Scouts with an opportunity to reach a high level of achievement. One can join directly at any age. Leaders with skills can add to those skills through proper training within the movement. The Scout story is very much part of the 20th century. It's a story with no end because the ideas put into practice by its illustrious founder, Lord Baden-Powell, so long ago, will go on forever.